Hello, everybody. I hope you're well. It has been quite a while, hasn't it? I recently watched the interview between Ukraine President Zelensky and Lex Fridman with great interest, and it was particularly interesting to me because Lex Fridman, I think, reaches the same audience that I have been trying to reach as I write essays and make videos about Russian propaganda, trying to educate Westerners about how pervasive and nefarious this propaganda is. I've been at it since 2016, when I encountered absolute insanity inside of libertarian circles and libertarian publications, all the way back from 2016. So it's kind of been my mission, not my main mission, but like a thing I do since then to write about Russian propaganda. So I think Lex reaches this same audience, kind of people who are politically in the center plus a little bit right of center. Maybe people who, like myself, either were or still are libertarian in their kind of mentality. But anyway, I think President Zelensky did a fantastic job, mostly just by being patient and by letting Lex Fridman kind of just ask all the wrong questions. And President Zelensky not just like flying off the handle and losing his temper, which I might easily have done in his place, because his Lex's questions were so biased and they spoke to such a distorted worldview. But nevertheless, like with hindsight and like having the chance to think about it, I do think there are three things which would have been very interesting for President Zelensky to bring up. So I'm calling this three things which President Zelensky could have done even better than he did in that interview. And tell me what you think in the comments. Let me know if you agree or disagree, or have anything else you think he might have done. But the first is push back a little bit harder on Lex's questions. So Lex Fridman kept asking, like, what are you going to do to make peace? How can you make peace? When will you make peace? Under what conditions will you make peace? And I think Zelensky did a great job of letting him just keep going. And all the commentary that has followed the interview, like, has really like put Lex under the magnifying glass. Like, are these the appropriate questions? Like, Russia openly talks about genocide of Ukraine, and that's what I would have liked Zelensky to say, like, in the end, like really calmly, in the way that he did, like, listen, Mr. Friedman or Lex, like, you've been asking me a lot about peace and a lot about like after the war. Do you realize that official Kremlin propaganda openly discusses genocide of Ukrainians on television? Okay, do you realize the war crimes that were committed yesterday, that are being committed today, that will be committed tomorrow? And I think in that interview he should not have gotten graphic, though he could have. Probably not right to do in that setting, but he could have said, like, torture, rape, murder, beheadings, castrations of prisoners of war. Like, it's absolutely horrific. Widespread looting. Like, he could have said that and said, like, is it appropriate to talk about what our side will do for peace, or is it more appropriate to first talk about justice? And pushed back and asked the question, like, why are these the questions that you have chosen to ask in these 3 hours? I thought that might have been nice. Number two, I think, and maybe Zelensky himself doesn't appreciate the philosophical difference between Russia and the West, but it would have been a great opportunity to start educating the West about the philosophical difference, about the world outlook, how Russia is so different from what the West not only believes, but what the West thinks is universal, what the West thinks is how everybody, sees the world. So specifically, and maybe Zelensky doesn't appreciate this because he's lived his whole life in Ukraine. He was born in the Soviet Union. I think he was from a Russian-speaking area or family. So maybe Zelensky himself doesn't see this, but he could have said, like, it would have been lovely if he said, like, look, Lex, you keep using the phrase after the war. That's a very sort of positive, Western way of seeing the world, that war is something temporary and then you move on. As somebody who lives right next to Russia, we have to first ask the question, does Russia even believe in this concept of after the war? Russia has a very paranoid worldview, and they just view sort of the time the shooting stops is the time to get ready for the next war. And I think this next part would probably have been too much to say in the interview, but I want to tell my viewers, I think part of the reason that Russia is just so barbaric and so brutal and like is so proud of the suffering that they're able to create, in their neighbors, and so proud of the fear that they strike in the West, is because if Russia ever had the advantages over the West that the West has over Russia, like Russia would ruthlessly exploit those advantages. We're talking about economic advantages, military, scientific, cultural, soft power, perception, credibility. Like if Russia ever had the advantages that the West has today, they would use it to just take over the world. So like Russia is really scared, like because they don't understand why the West isn't acting as ruthlessly as they would if they had that much power. And that's what leads Russia to sort of prioritize like terror. They prioritize making people afraid of them because they think they're about to be annihilated, when in reality, all of Russia's neighbors don't want to annihilate them. Well, I guess some do now, but they just want nothing to do with them ever. They want to put up a big wall or a big moat or whatever else. Anyway, that's a bit of a tangent, but I think the part that Zelensky may have benefited from and promoted Ukraine's cause even more than he did is by just pointing out this difference. We need to see some proof that Russia believes in this concept of after the war, because he could have talked about, and this was a great chance to bring up that there's an interview right after Russia seized or annexed 20% of the country of Georgia's territory, like right after it, 2008 or 9. Putin did an interview, and Putin really shut down a journalist who asked him what the next target is and if Crimea is the next target. This is 2009, and Putin said there was no target. We interfered in an ethnic conflict in Georgia. There is no such ethnic conflict in Ukraine. The borders of Ukraine, including Crimea, are absolutely settled. It's a short video on my YouTube channel. I'll link to it in the description. So like Zelensky could have said, like, look, Putin has like guaranteed Ukraine's borders before. We need some evidence that this is a country that believes in treaties and believes in the concept of after the war, because it doesn't seem like that to us. It seems like Russia always sees itself at war, and that's why we're asking for deterrence. Number 3, he could have a little bit, in my opinion, could have a little bit more strongly highlighted what Ukraine is fighting for. That Ukraine is fighting for freedom. So there was a beautiful moment when he could have done this, and it was when Lex asked him about language, about should we speak Russian, will Ukrainians be okay marrying Russians? Oh, such inappropriate questions to be asking right now. Will Ukrainians be okay marrying Russians and speaking Russian? And Zelensky could have said, first of all, like, Ukrainians will decide themselves what language to speak, because the Ukrainians will be free people. It is our destiny to have liberty. And then he should have added the thing that he basically said in the interview. I personally choose to speak Ukrainian because of Russia is using their language as a weapon and as a way of denying the fact that Ukrainians exist. So he could have underlined that Ukraine is fighting for freedom. Oh, and I would have loved to have heard Zelensky say something like that when he spoke to Congress in the U.S. So in the U.S., like, he could have acknowledged this huge amount of tension that exists in the American political system, probably more than has existed maybe since the Civil War. He could have said look, there is a lot of tension. Like, Democrats think that Republicans are their biggest enemy, and Republicans think that Democrats are this biggest enemy. I want to remind you how much we admire you, how much we Ukrainians admire your system, and we want what you have. We want to live in a country where people can have very strong beliefs and act on those beliefs in a peaceful, democratic system. That's not perfect, but that is a great alternative to Russian autocracy. So that, I thought that would have been just beautiful, because it's true. It's beautiful because it's true. As Keats the poet said, beauty is truth and truth is beauty. And as my poetry teacher added, well, Rudy toot toot and tooty toot tooty. Quick channel update. I'm shutting down this channel. I thought I would be doing a lot more of this than I have. I think I've only posted, I don't know, a half dozen long form videos, and I do so very slowly. So what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to take the channel down, but I'm going to re-upload these videos in the my counter-propaganda channel. I'm going to upload them to my normal channel that has existed for a long time, Roman's Book Report. And yeah, and new videos, including this one, will appear there. So I want all my subscribers to subscribe to that other channel, and that's the one that will have some sort of future. So let me check the numbers here. 53. Okay, so all 53 of you subscribers, please sign up to my other channel. Link in the description, and more content will follow. Take care, everybody.